Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez here. It is Saturday, the 14th of January, 2017. We made it past dreaded Friday the 13th without any problems at all, as I knew we would. All right, I want to tell you a little bit about what's been going on with me lately. I have been suffering with very severe lower back pain for the last couple of years, and I think they diagnosed it as finally all of the high impact exercise and crazy things I did when I was active duty is caught up with me. And so I have destroyed my lower last two vertebral discs in my spine, and I can barely bend over. And when you see me here sitting here, I'm sitting pretty much straight, and you don't see me wince too much. But if I try to pick up something and I have to bend, it's quite severe. So had a series of x-rays and MRIs and CT scans and the whole bit, and that's finally the diagnosis. And so I've been wearing these lidocaine patches on my back for the last several days. They seem to help a little bit, and moving around during the day is helpful. Getting up in the morning is a quite an ordeal. Actually, you have to kind of roll off the bed. Anyway, but that's, just so you guys know, in case I go off air for a week or so, I may be at the hospital, so you never know. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit further about the darkroom days. Somebody who I told I worked out of the color facility in Fort Myers back in the early to mid 80s wanted to know if I had photographs of the establishment. I said, no, we don't. We really didn't care. We went there to work, and the last thing we wanted to was to shoot photographs of our lab. But I'll let you guys know what it was like, the routine. I used to drive about 40 miles to and from my home to the Pentagon, or just outside the Pentagon, actually. It's Fort Myers, which is basically attached to it. And that's where Arlington Cemetery is located. And we had an old wooden government building where we had a lab. We had a little shooting studio upstairs where we did the what they call a full-length photographs for soldiers before they go for promotion. We set them up and we make them look as good as they possibly can. And this is the way they get sort of selected before they actually go to the promotion board. So we had to produce the best possible photograph for these guys. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, the quality control guy would show up, and he would calibrate our film processors and paper processors by running these standard strips through it and then taking measurements off of these developed strips, then providing us with changes that we had to apply in the darkroom to our printing process. Printing process was very interesting. We had a device called a translator. What this was is a light sensitive meter that you would place on top of the easel. You would diffuse your negative through a diffuser filter, and it would create just a shade of a given color. Remember, negatives for color negatives were basically orange. They had an orange mask built in, and that was necessary. I cannot really explain what that mask was for, but that's what the process used. And it allowed you to simply use yellow and magenta filtration rather than having to include cyan. And cyan was never necessary. So now you would take a reading, you would adjust the f-stop from full down, and then you will see a little needle on the dial reach 0. So that's the correct exposure for that negative. And of course, we would print a standard negative, which was provided to us by Kodak. It was a lady named Shirley. We used to call it the Shirley. And it had a woman, studio lit, and a bunch of patches from black to white, color patches, a gray card, and so on. And this is the standard that we printed daily every morning, first thing in the morning. And you basically did the exposure calibration, and then you did the color calibration, and it would provide you with two numbers, one for yellow, one for magenta, which you then dialed into your dichroic printhead or light housing. And that would provide you a very, very close setting for your standard print, which you then printed. We had roll easels. They were automatic fed. They used 8-inch wide rolls. Everything was 8 by 10, and they would collect on the opposite take-up spool, which you would then remove, place in a container, take over to the dark side of the paper processor, feed it into the paper processor, and go to the other side and wait for it to come out. At that point, you would then take it over to the light viewing hood or the viewing hood, and if you needed help, you would call the quality control guy, and he would tell you, this is a little yellow, it's a little magenta, and you would go back and make slight adjustments and until you got it correct. Once you got it correct, and those are your settings basically for the rest of the photographs that you were assigned to do that day. Most of them are shot indoors. Most of them were shot under controlled flash conditions. Most of them were shot in the same location by basically the same guy on a daily. They were all award ceremonies, group shots, the most boring stuff you've ever seen. And luckily, I was in the lab. I didn't care about going to the Pentagon and having to wear my Class A uniform every day. No, 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 no. So that job was really assigned to civilian photographers working for the department. And so I just dealt with printing, color printing. Now, color processing of film, easy. You just attach a leader to your film, feed it through the machine, and it would be processed and come out of the other side. Either the machine for negative film or the machine for transparencies, the ectochromes. And so if we needed anything other than 8 by 10, then you would go to the guy that ran the so-called custom lab, and he had an adjustable easel in, regular cut paper instead of roll paper. So that was it. It was a very, very routine-like day. Every day was basically the same thing. I actually loved it. I actually enjoyed it a lot, and I snuck in a few prints here and then for my personal use. They also always told us that we could stay after work and run whatever the heck we wanted, as long as it wasn't for making a profit. So now that lasted for about 3 years. Then I got orders to go to Honduras, Central America, which is the first time that it got me into actually shooting with the camera again. It had been years that I had been stuck in the lab, probably 6-7 years that I had been straight stuck in the lab. So there I ran around with the military, I ran around with the infantry, I ran around with the tankers, I ran around with the helicopter flyers, and it was fun. Dangerous, but fun. So that allowed me to produce some images that I would never have been able to get otherwise, stuck in the darkroom. But my darkroom years really taught me a lot, and jumping into the digital realm, it was just a breeze. I knew exactly what every tool in Photoshop meant because they were using the same symbols representing the same processes that you used in the darkroom. So that was a lot of fun. Migrating over, I didn't have any problems. I hated it at first because I thought digital was just awful. What a disgrace. But anyway, we've all learned to accept it, and that's what we have to live with. But I still yearn for the film days. All right, so that is it. Like I said, I shot 4 videos yesterday, uploaded one last night. I'm going to upload one now. So that leaves me with 2 plus this one. And so I'm going to do a short video in a couple of days, and I'm going to show you. That's when we're going to reach 5,000 subscribers. We are that close. We are above 4,900 subscribers right now. And so we'll have a little celebration. I'll personally thank everybody for your amazing support. I just recently got a donation from someone, and I want to thank them. Whoever they were, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. That'll really come a long way to help the channel, as always, because this is what we survive on. If I was rich and wealthy, and I wouldn't even monetize my videos, it wouldn't be necessary. I would just love to share my knowledge, which is really my primary reason for the channel. The funds, yes, it helps the situation, but that's not my primary reason for running this channel. All right, thanks once again. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and like. click that little bell when you subscribe if you choose to. And until the next time, everybody, happy printing. Bye-bye.